Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 107 of the Peak of Serenity podcast. I am, as always, one of your hosts, emallson, and joining me, we have my co host, Anomoly.
Hello.
And this week, we're going to be talking about the Creation Catalyst, which comes out on Tuesday. So, for those of us that maybe haven't finished our tier sets yet, that's going to be a great system. We're going to talk about ways that you can use that for your main to clean up maybe some LFR pieces that you're wearing to complete your 4 set, uh, as well as what that means for your alts and getting tier for those, and maybe like some good ways for you to prep your alts to take advantage of that.
Yep.
But before we get into that, we've of course got hotfixes to go through. And before we get into that, Anomoly, how is progression going?
Progression. It's going. We got Pantheon down this week. So that was a good. I hate that fight. I think
Really?
it's I
Oh,
it's it
I remember talking about this around Kael'thas. You don't like healing NPCs.
I don't like healing NPCs. I think that's one part of it. I think the second part with Pantheon is that it's literal mechanic vomit. Like
Mm,
the like
yeah, yeah.
there's just things happening all the time, but like the things don't make sense, or like they don't tick and tie like phase 2 in general. I think is just an awful phase because you have the stampeding things along with the pull in, along with having to run and spread out, and like it's a cluster of just 300 different things happening at once.
Yeah.
And then you have to heal NPCs, and the NPCs are like at set
Spread
positions,
out.
which is cool, but they're at set positions on other sides of the map. So it's just like,
And they removed the ability to automark them, apparently.
yes.
Or the big wigs automarker broke, one of the two. Um, so we couldn't automark them. That was fun. We went in because like
Yeah.
on heroic we'd been automarking. I guess it broke sometime before we pulled Mythic, and we just didn't notice because it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Um, they just thought I had like turned off the setting or whatever. Uh, and so we get to Mythic, and they're like, why aren't they being marked? We had like said we were gonna heal this one, and it's like there's no marker.
Way to go. Yeah. So I mean, it's also like our healing comps. We ran 4 healers on the fight, and it was like myself, a paladin, and then two like holy priests. And like I couldn't heal two of the four like seeds because of the way
Because
we
they're out
position
of
the
boss
bosses.
range. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just not fun. And the other part of it is like with the health change, which is good for us, but I think it just the 40% means you literally have like one set of mechanics for each mob in phase 3. So
Yeah.
really it's like if you get through phase 2 with say, 19 of 20 people or like limited number of deaths, the boss essentially falls over doing only like one set of mechanics.
Yeah.
Um
We actually managed to
so
wipe in phase 3 this week.
oh really?
Because we didn't do kicks well. We missed so many kicks. And it just
Gotcha.
murders people when you miss kicks. It's pretty
Gotcha.
bad. Um
Yeah.
but yeah, I agree with a lot of what you say about that fight. Like it's a fine fight. It's actually kind of relaxing to tank after the first 4 that you do that have
Yeah.
much higher tank requirements. This one, like, you literally stand at the same spot for the entire fight, and you don't point the frontal at the raid.
Easy. Uh, It's
uh,
pretty yeah.
that's really it. There's not a whole lot else going on. You do have to get kicks and things, and there's the thing that can happen where you can have a stampede come from right behind you where you're tanking, and you have to like move. But 90% of pulls that doesn't happen, and the 10% of pulls that does happen, you just like move clockwise 45 degrees, and you're
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
Um,
the winds are like the tornadoes are just also weird.
yes, I hate
Um,
those.
so
We actually this week, so we killed this last Sunday,
okay,
um,
nice.
at like the end of raid, and then actually no, we had enough time to go and like waste some time on heroics of all,
Mhm.
which is another bad fight. I don't like it.
I
I don't
hate
like it
line
at
of
all.
sight, so I'm not gonna enjoy that
Um,
one.
it's boring. At least on heroic. I'm
Hero-
sure on mythic it's going to be more interesting. There's more stuff going on, but on heroic it's just boring.
yeah, which is apropos to the other boss. I guess you're progressing on, and we progress on, which is Lihuvim, which is like extremely boring on normal and heroic. I actually really like the fight on mythic.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
really like it. Because we spent about half the raid, or no, 3/4 of our raid night Thursday working on to like 3 hours, and that fight is I really enjoy the dance. Like it's very set in stone. It's very like mechanical, but like if you mess up one of those mechanics, it's not a immediate wipe. Well, there's certain ones like if you don't do enough DPS to the ad, you don't kill the one you're supposed to kill. That's an
Yeah.
issue. But like the moats, if you drop them in a bad spot or you trigger one of them, you can still kind of maneuver around them, right? So it's not an immediate wipe. But yeah, that fight is like the dance is cool. The in and out push pull grouping stuff is fun. So I don't know. I had a blast. Progress like our 3 hours we did that was so much fun. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a lot better on Mythic.
yeah,
And so we spent about an hour on it at this point. We had about an hour on it on Friday. We didn't spend any time on it last week because we went to Heroic Jailer.
yeah,
Um, and are basically like figuring out the damage requirements on that first burn where you like split up and you have two groups,
yeah.
or at least there's two different shots for doing it now. I think one of them you just everybody goes to the same thing every time. There's no splits, and then the other one is that you split on the first set. I think there's actually
Yeah.
a third strat where you split on the first and second. On the second one, you commit bloodlust to get it.
Interesting. Yeah, we're
But
just splitting on the first one and
we're
then
doing the
grouping
same
for the
thing.
rest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you three
So
healing it?
yeah.
Yeah, that the solo healer side sucks, by the way. Like to the point where like if I because that's the side I'm healing,
Mhm.
if I cast on the wrong person, someone dies. Like and it's not like, hey, if I like but it's not like if I miss it, like if I make the first cast, it's like if I cast a spell and it's like a minute, or it's like a about 2 second cast. If I make it on the wrong person, the entire side dies because I can't cancel that cast. So I need to go off. I need to have picked the right person that's going to take enough damage over the next 2 seconds to actually need the heal. It's a it's super fun, but it's also that point where you're just like, I'm literally watching one of my mages die. It's like I'm not going to be able to save them.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
that's fun. Um.
yeah, it's I mean it's a at least the split side's fun. So yeah, the solo
Uh.
side sorry is fun.
But yeah, so we've I think figured that out. We are learning the dance, and we actually had a pretty like we ended our raid on Friday with a pretty good pull. We got about 4 minutes into the fight, and then had
Oh
things go
nice.
completely off the rails, um,
Yeah.
because things just got missed. Um, but yeah, it's very one shotty fight. Is the other thing. There's a lot of like, oops, the raid's dead going on.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Particularly with the push pull with the shifts, right?
yeah.
Like that's where you're gonna lose, I think, most people. So
Yeah, and the thing where like you need to have like people stack with the opposite color, right?
yeah.
But then there's not a good way of like assigning people that's going to be
There's a
reliable.
there's a weak aura.
We have that weak aura. But what happened to us, we had half of our polls on Friday that actually you don't get the point. But half of our
Yeah.
polls, we just had two groups that had all of one color on each of them. And we had to like
Gotcha.
change in the middle of the poll. And it was like, ah, you go here, you go there, and it's
Didn't work.
significantly
So what we did, and I think what our raid leader did is that in each group there's one person that is essentially is like a trusted mechanic person, and so like they're the two that swap if needed. So like
okay.
each group basically has like their person where you stack, and that's the lead, but then you have
You
like the
know,
swap person.
that may have been the mistake on our part because that's our marked target for the stacks is the trusted
Oh
mechanical person.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they can't exactly switch.
yeah.
So maybe that was just an assignment error. Maybe the mechanical people need to not be the marked one.
Yeah, and that's and then like basically going like because pretty much after the first set comes out, like so our raid leader basically call so and so swap. So like I would swap in one group, go to the other one,
Yeah.
and then like you look at the marker, and then all of us had like the assignments week aura, so you could see
Yep.
like the group that was all blue or the group that was all yellow. Do you
Yeah.
know where you were maybe needing to swap? But yeah, that I mean yeah, that's if you don't get the swaps right, like the groups right, it's sort of annoying. But yeah, the fight's fun. Um, Lots of like micro like efficiency things you can do, like our melee stack on like a diamond pattern because we do the dropping motes. We just drop melee motes near the boss. and
Hmm.
then range sort of put them wherever they want as long as they're far away.
Yeah.
And so like the bombs only have to clear like two smaller stacks instead of trying to do like the whole
Yeah.
raid and like a configuration for moats.
We were
So
initially going to do that, and then we had a bunch of people be like, I think that sounds risky, and we're going to wipe, 9 minutes into the fight and then have to learn honeycombs anyway. And there were
yeah.
enough people that were concerned about that. They were like, okay, we'll do the honeycombs, which is where, for people that aren't familiar with it, you have like a center. You have two people that are like the centers of two honeycombs, and then there are six people arranged in a hexagon around them that
Mhm.
all drop overlapping motes. And then with the bombs, what you do is you take your bomb, you go stand next to the center one, and you can hit all seven. Then you clear 14 out of 18 motes on every set, which is, I think, actually the most that you can do. I don't think there's any realistic way to clear all 18.
Yeah, I don't think
So those
I don't
last
think you
four
get
just like take theirs wherever out of the raid. Yeah, like you were saying.
yeah. Yeah, we just did the whole just keep them in melee and then we fill up certain sections of the
Yeah,
room as we
yeah,
move around. So yeah,
yeah,
we were consistently making it to I think it's either the second or the third intermission where you have the double packs of mobs that come
yeah.
in.
The
I
double
don't know if
degens.
that's
I think that's the second one.
yeah, and so that's where we were falling apart just because then as those die, moats drop on people and like we weren't getting
Right.
the moats out right. And so we're messing with like how to do positioning and where to actually put those moats. So that's
Yeah.
where we're basically at
Yeah,
in
so
the
those
fight. So
modes you don't get to clear either. So
yeah.
that's a challenge as well. So yeah, we were actually running into issues with people like they were doing a lot better at this than they were on heroic. They were hitting the degens too soon, or not getting close
Yeah.
enough in. And we don't have a blood decay on this fight. So there's no like mass gripping the degens.
Hmm.
So people really need to actually be diligent about getting underneath the boss and fucking standing there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's one of the things for tonight, I think, is going to be like get underneath the boss and you stand there so that we can get a leg sweep off on all of the degens.
Yeah. And get them all in. Yeah. And then I don't know if you're doing it, but we changed our gating. So we used to gate from the ad to the center to get there quicker.
Uh,
And what we changed was we're now gating from the center to where we're dropping moats. So like we basically roar from that ad we kill to get under the boss and then use the gate
okay.
to get out quick as moats start coming out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um
We have a roar to get towards the boss, I think. And then we have a
yeah.
gate to get back. I'm not sure
Yeah.
actually where our gate's going. There's a gate that the people doing the split use to get to their
Yeah,
side.
so that's one of our two that we'll basically gate the split, but then we have
Yeah.
our warlock after we come back from that split and are in the center again before we start shifting the boss closer to that ad we kill. We
Mhm.
have them drop the gate from the center towards the entrance, which is where we sort of been stacking moats.
Yeah.
Um, from those things. So, I like I said, there's like a bunch of different like micro thing like efficiency things you can do in the fight. I think it's a lot better on Mythic than it is. I
Yeah.
just remember like heroic week, we went in with like 30 people or probably like 28 people and like five have been five healing and everything. And it wasn't a very intensive healing up until that point on any boss, but you had stuff to heal. That boss, I think every healer was under 5k HPS. Like
Yeah. The
it
boss
just
had
did no
nothing
damage.
to
So
heal. Yeah.
yeah.
Um yeah. It is significantly better on Mythic, I think. Yeah, that's true. Uh so one last thing I want to touch on progression. So
Yeah.
we have one paladin in our raid. That paladin is out tonight, next Friday, and maybe next Sunday. Which means that
Jeez.
if we kill Lihuvim tonight, which is reasonably likely, we've got 4 hours to spend on it.
Yeah.
Then we're going to be looking at progressing Halandris without a paladin.
Shouldn't be too bad.
So I am preparing to play Protection Paladin on
Yeah.
Halandris, which is going to be interesting. And it's actually more than preparing to play Protection Paladin. I'm preparing to play Necro Lord Protection Paladin
Oh, okay, okay.
because what it does is it basically makes some of your wogs like every 30 seconds you get two wogs that also grant Shield of the Righteous. So basically every 30 seconds you get two free wogs. You kind of sort of have to pay for them. Like you have to have
Yeah.
the resources to pay for what would be a Shield of the Righteous, but you push a wog instead and you get your Shield of the Righteous for free, which just lets you wog other people a bunch more.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
means the reason I'm doing that is specifically for actually the second intermission, which is pretty healing
yeah,
intensive. So I'm going to be able to stack up like 4 or 6 free wogs for that, plus whatever divine whatever it's called favor procs that I
yeah,
get,
yeah.
and just like go nuts
That'll
on
be
the healing.
awesome.
So yeah, that's gonna be fun. I've been trying like I've played Protection Paladin for like one progression boss every tier except for well, like I did it in BOD.
Yeah,
I tried to do it in Ulir and didn't get to. There was nothing that made sense for in Eternal Palace, and I didn't even try in Nilotha because corruption. Um,
yeah.
and then I did it on Kael'thas in Castle Nathria because
All right. Yeah, yep,
Hand of
yep.
the Protector was very silly on that boss. Like I would come out of the first phase and be doubling the next healer's healing to
Yeah,
boss. It
yeah.
was super dumb. And then what is I don't think I actually did one in Sanctum. I don't think I played Paladin on anything for Sanctum progression. There just wasn't anything that you need.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and then now it's on potentially Holandris, which is the most significant progression boss I will have played it on
Oh, yeah.
if that ends up
Yeah.
being what I do. Because Holandris is like the second most time intensive boss as far as progression this tier. It's like that, and then the Jailer are the
Other.
top
Oh,
two, and then Anduin is like third slash second. Like some people take as much time on Anduin as Halandras, but Halandras is definitely the bigger wall.
yeah.
So
Oh
yeah,
man.
but that gives
Very
us a
nice.
Devo aura as well,
Yeah, yeah,
which
which we yeah.
is
Good for
pretty
like
good.
missiles and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Nice. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Yeah, we'll
looking forward to it.
hopefully get to see Hollanders next week. We'll see.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that one. That'll be an interesting fight,
yeah.
for
Lihuvim is
sure.
one of those things where like we could go in tonight and finish it up in like 2 hours,
Yeah.
or it could take us all night, right? Or
Exactly.
even
Yeah.
like there's a small chance that we don't kill it, but it's really like once you get to the point that you've learned how to do the push pull and you've learned how to do your honeycombs,
Yeah.
the whole fight is just doing those over and over and over and over and over.
Right. Yeah.
So as long
Exactly.
as you can just do those two mechanics on repeat for 10 minutes, you can kill the boss. So
Exactly.
if we've got those under control and we actually are able to execute those on repeat for 10 minutes, we could be through that pretty quickly, or we could not be through that until the end of the night and not really get to spend a lot of the time on the lunges. So
Exactly. Exactly. No, that'll be good. Yeah. I mean, hopefully you guys sort of crush it and get a couple hours in Hollanders this week, which will be nice. Set you up for next week for sure. So.
I
Oh,
I'm a
cool.
little bit annoyed with our raid, and this is a good kind of annoyed. But
Yeah.
so last year I had more time to do other things because I wasn't having to spend as much time on prep because we were killing bosses more slowly.
Yeah.
This tier we're going faster, and it means that every week I'm like, okay, I have to get prep done for this new boss now.
Yeah. For the next one. Yeah.
Yeah, uh, which is a good problem to have, but it has meant that like there was a patch for Total Warhammer 3 that came out on Tuesday that
Yeah.
I have spent a total of like 1 hour with because
You
I
really want
had
to
to
play
do
some more?
live. I had to do live stuff, and then I had to start doing stuff for Halandris, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh man, oh boo hoo. Too fast on the progression side.
yeah.
Feel
All
so
right.
bad for you.
Um, Moving right along, we've got
Yeah.
a number of hot fixes and other news items out of the way. You want to get through a couple of the quick ones first?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just a couple of quick ones. So first one is Jeff Hamilton, who was a senior game designer at Blizzard, is leaving. Moving on, going. I don't think he announced where he was headed yet, but yeah, moving on. You might remember Jeff as one of the leads. Well, he's a senior dev, but he sort of worked on a bunch of different systems over the past couple of years, Azerite, Shards Domination, and some interesting trinkets like QED and the pocket size computation device, aka cyclotronic.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, he is moving on. Made a big post, sort of also posted some of the stuff that he had his hands in terms of maybe some actual direction. But yeah, sucks to see another senior dev go. Just in terms of like cohesiveness in that team. But
Yeah,
we'll
a lot of
see. We'll see what.
brain drain over the past year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like him. It's a couple other folks that left earlier in the year, like Lore or just left Jeff Allen. Or
Yeah,
sorry, what's his name? Not, Allen's his last name. His first name is not Jeff.
Josh Allen.
Josh, yeah, another J name. Um, yeah, they Blizzard seems to be losing a bunch of folks, and I think a lot of it probably has to do with a lot of like the just the goings on at Blizzard, right? Like the lawsuits and things like that have come out. So, yeah, it sucks to see Jeff go, but wish him the best in at least the future, I guess we could say. Um, but yeah, that is old Mr. Hamilton. Moving on. The other thing that happened this week, sort of randomly from a hotfix perspective, is how do you say Pocopo Copac Popico
Poke? I don't
Poke
know.
Poke Poke the your little friend in Zerath Mortis. They started dropping all the customization items this week. So if you're wondering where you were at to get like a customized body, some interesting
I had
like
gotten
arm
one of
guards.
these. Like, I don't know if the
Yeah.
drop rates were just awful or what. But I had one of these. I got which one did I get? I think I got the one from the World Boss, maybe.
Okay. I know that the
But
hats were dropping.
okay, yeah, the
So
hats were dropping.
yeah, the little things you could put on the head. But yeah, no, there was now they've dropped all the customizations, and then there's like an item or there's a thing you can interact with in the cave, underground cave in Zereth
Yeah.
Mortis that lets you sort of gives you UI to change everything. Yeah, no, it's now you can customize your that you have out for the 15 minutes you do dailies, right?
If
If
you're
you still
still
do
doing
those.
dailies, because I'm
If you're still
definitely
doing
not.
those.
I have spent more
I
time in Zereth Mortis the past couple days than I have in a while because I hadn't done the campaign of my paladin, and it turns out that it's an insane source of renown.
Yeah,
Because
it's a
like
very good.
every chapter gives like 5 or 6.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll
It's
be
not just the first one, which is I knew the first one was insane, but like I
yeah.
was at renown 50 in Necrolord after doing some Torghast. I was like, yeah, this should be enough to between the Necrolord campaign and the Zereth Mortis campaign. I should hit 80. So I just went and
Yeah.
started the Zereth Mortis campaign. I'm now renown 75 with 2 chapters left to go, and I haven't even touched the Necrolord campaign.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, so it's a huge source of renown, but now you get a little customized little buddy to follow you around. So,
Yep, yep.
there's some cool stuff in there. The other thing, more of a maybe a downer versus an upper here, is that Team Aster, which was one of the professional Chinese guilds, they were Chinese first world, sorry, they were second this tier. They were first in Sanctum, world sixth this tier. They disbanded. So Team Aster is no longer supporting or sort of sponsoring the guild, which is interesting. There's a bunch of I mean, Wowhead did a big post about it. There's a bunch of clips coming from different things, different points where a lot of infighting, you could say. um,
Yeah, I'm gonna say if you really want to know about Team Aster, you should go and read the Wowhead post because there's a bunch of drama
yeah,
in that guild,
yeah,
and yeah, there's a lot going on there.
yeah. Tons of things, but they essentially um, disbanded the entire team. So they're not keeping anybody. I think Aster just literally pulled out of supporting it. So
Yeah,
um, yeah, but
it's
yeah,
yeah. I don't. Yeah,
their setup though, at least for I think last year, was awesome looking in terms of
yeah,
like the arena that they put everybody in. But yeah, this tier, or I guess this tier, maybe a slightly disappointing getting second, and then also, yeah, it's they are no longer, so
yeah.
sucks for them.
Reading that
Um,
post is something though. You like. I'm not saying you should definitely go read it, but if you are curious, you should just read it. I don't think we should recap it here. I don't think we'll do
yeah,
it
exactly.
justice.
No, no, no. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff going on. Then the other, I guess, the other sort of news, the fun post is a bunch of the world first guilds tweeted out exactly how much they spent this tier, which is again gone up since Sanctum, but varying levels. So Liquid spent about 723 million gold, Echo spent 694, SK Pieces about 670, and then Method and BDG lower at 480 and 300, so 293. And yeah, so lots of gold being spent by the top two guilds, and probably inflated slightly just based on a lot of the trading they did for tier,
Yeah,
which probably pushed that number up. But Yeah, 73 million gold, which is a mass amount. And then I guess Jin Tang Hong, which is one of the Chinese guilds, spent 1.1 billion gold, which
Yeah.
it's tough to. I
That
think the
one you
Chinese
have
market is
to
slightly inflated. Yeah.
yeah, you have to that one if you look at the value in like somebody converted it using the US token prices and it's like obviously insane if you do that. But the
Yeah.
token price in China is significantly different. So
Right.
it's actually a much more reasonable amount. It's more in line with like the SK pieces Echo amount of gold than the
Exactly.
almost double it looks like if you actually have like that amount of gold.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um but yeah, like Valoris posted a breakdown of their expenditure and it's like 245 million on just the gear trading. That's not BOEs. They then spent another 215 million on BOEs.
Yeah.
That's that's a lot. Like
That's it.
I have to imagine that something is going to change for next tier. Like if they're going to want to do tier sets again. The community reception,
Right.
despite the stuff with the world first race, despite some of the acquisition issues, despite creation catalyst coming out about 4 weeks too late, um, is very positive around tier sets. Like tier sets are good. They're
Yeah.
good. They're fun. They're interesting. They're just good. So they're gonna want to keep doing them. I 100% believe. I just
Oh yeah.
can't. I can't envision them not doing something to change acquisition after this tier. Like they tried to make this like if you remember the lore leak that we talked about where they were like we made this change so that you guys won't have to split and
Yeah.
then the raiders go but wait this means we just have to split more and of course they
Exactly.
did they just split more. I can't imagine them doing something like either walking that back changing something about acquisition creation catalyst coming out sooner something to deal with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say that I mean, my personal opinion on this is that like the world first guilds will always do some degenerate stuff to get as much gear
Yeah,
as possible. So I think like from a
right.
Blizzard perspective, like regardless of the system they put in place,
They
like
should not tune it around those people.
yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing too is like while this the idea before and who I was talking to somebody about this, but the idea before was you'd have raiders like in the guild have like 7 8 characters, right? And like
Yeah,
that was the bar that you needed to like make sure you would have enough people to run splits and do gear. But with the focus on like the publicity around the world first race, you no longer need raiders to have 7 8 characters. You just need them to have maybe 2 or 3 to cover some bad luck, and then you just source from the community all your
yeah,
trades. Like all your splits are
yeah.
now like community
You
focused.
basically
So
pay gold to get people to funnel.
exactly, exactly. Versus making your raiders maintain 8 9 characters, right?
Yeah,
To do the same thing. So yeah, no, I mean it's a ton of gold. I think the gold numbers just will continue to go up. It'll be sort of a little bit of an arms
yeah,
race, and then you know, I guess the idea will be like it'll just be like the next degenerate thing that they do to get as much gear as possible. It'll
yeah,
cost them a bunch of gold, probably more than this tier, and yeah, it'll be something we like maybe not have realized. It's definitely gonna suck for the race, I'll say, in terms of viewership, which I know Blizzard isn't too concerned with, but it's gonna suck from a viewership perspective if like Mythic Week, the first 2 days are nothing but heroic and normal splits.
I
Right.
get
Like
it.
that just
Yeah,
yeah, that just kills hype
yeah,
for it. Right. So
yeah. And like when I say I don't, I can't envision them not doing something to change it. In my perspective, it is they need they. I see them doing something to change it to make it better for more casual players
yeah.
because like the extra rules around trading tier were actually pretty frustrating where like people would have their four piece and then get a fifth piece that was an eye level downgrade that they then also couldn't trade you know
Yeah.
but they didn't need it to equip their four piece like they already had four piece but then they also couldn't give it to somebody who needed it for their four piece you
Right.
know so that actually is what resulted in my guild or my raid team doing some small splits last reset, where we literally
Yeah.
like did two runs or three runs. I think it was two runs of the last three bosses on normal, so that we could guarantee a couple people to get their tier sets. And it's just like, do we necessarily need to do that? No, we could have just benched those players, but
Right.
like we could spend an hour doing splits and not have to bench people based on who had their tier sets, 7 weeks into the tier.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, make it a little bit better. No, for sure. So, I mean, we'll see what they change from that from a gearing perspective, but yeah, it's the World First Guild spent a lot of gold in terms of like,
Yeah.
yeah, trying to gear that up. So cool. So we'll shift gears slightly on some other new topics. So a couple of things popped up on the 9.2.5 PTR.
Okay.
So in this week's build, there's a couple of items around empowering raid items, basically. So
I'm
basically
excited about
things you can
this.
use. And so it essentially it reads like there's an upgrade to mythic, an upgrade to heroic type items that look to take a piece of gear and will upgrade it to either mythic level or heroic level. And they require like 20 items to create the item that you then use to upgrade the gear. So it'll be interesting to see how this system sort of plays out. If it's just a typical like you kill like 20 heroic bosses or whatever it is, you kill a bunch of heroic bosses and get the ability to upgrade a normal item to heroic, or is it that you kill a bunch of heroic bosses and you get the ability to upgrade a heroic item to mythic? Because it like the Wowhead post insinuates that like the heroic stuff will just like you'll get in heroic and you'll upgrade gear to heroic. In my mind, it would be more interesting if this was a system to help smooth the transition from heroic into mythic by like allowing you to gain mythic level gear from the raid.
Yeah, I mean, I
Right.
think it does a couple things. So for one thing, um, like it does what you said right there, where it like smooths the transition where you get heroic gear, you use these to turn your heroic gear into mythic gear. It also
Yeah.
does this thing where when you start extending on mythic, it means you can still get mythic eye level items that aren't just from the Great Vault because you can
Yeah.
continue to run heroic and collect these things. Maybe, well, this is speculation that they even drop from it. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
speculation, but I mean, it seems pretty likely to me. They've done that so many times where they drop like a currency thing that you use for upgrades from raid bosses.
Yeah.
Um, you would use that to then like be able to continue to get mythic items despite not actually clearing mythic because you're extending on mythic Sylvanas or mythic jailer or whatever. And
Right.
then the third thing it does is actually kind of partially addresses the issue with the cantrip weapons and things like that, where now instead of needing to get a like I had two heroic Ainsmith weapons. If this had existed, I could have upgraded those into mythic Painsmith weapons. Without like we ultimately ended up getting I think five Painsmith weapons.
Right.
And we needed to like fully equip everybody that would use a mythic Painsmith weapon. We would have put them on we would have needed like 10 or 12. So
Yeah.
I ended up getting zero of so um
Oh, it sucks.
yep. But this would have helped with that, and it also helped with things like we got one or two mythic maledict opuses from Kel'Thuzad. We had a bunch of
Oh yeah.
heroic ones that are just useless because they're lower eye level than the regular mythic weapons. But if you could take
Hmm.
that and then use this to turn it into a mythic one, you know, that's big game right there. So there's
Nice.
there's a few different like things with this that I think are pretty exciting. Um, and I 100% prefer this. This is better than Titan Forging.
No, I agree too. Yeah, I agree. Even if this was like the new Titan forging where like you could upgrade specific like
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I was
You
talking
could
a
take
little
a
bit. Oh, go ahead.
sorry. No, what were you gonna say?
I was talking with some people recently about Titan Forging and things like that, and I was like, if we had something literally like this system, like this system that we're talking about,
Right.
that existed that let us basically like deterministically pick something to Titan Forge, um, and they just put Titan Forging back in, that would be fine with me as well.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think Titan Forging is a necessary part of it. I actually would kind of just prefer they left it out. But having this deterministic thing to be like, yeah, I'm going to Titan Forge this piece. It's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, it would be nice. I mean, and I think as always, like people will look back at like the badge vendors, right? From
Yeah.
Sunwell and BC and stuff like that is like that sort of like ability to close holes in your gearing is always a nice thing. Like, even if you have to grind it out, even if it's like you get one of these per week, so it's like if there's 20, you need 20, it's like 3 weeks of grinding, like something like that, right? If you're not going to
Yeah.
clear the whole raid, like that's fine as long as like like you can slowly build up to like this, right? Like you have
Yeah.
an endpoint, you can reach it,
Yeah.
right? Where in the current like in the Titan forging system, it's like, well, you might get it or you might not. So it might be like a 3 week thing of like, hey, I get really lucky, everything Titan forges, we're good. Or it might be a like three,
Never.
6 month thing. Yeah, or a
Yeah.
never thing, right? Where you just never get what you need. So
Yeah.
I'm always uh, I'm a fan of these systems as long as they're used like as long as it's not a like, hey, in 2 weeks you have everything you need. Like I think there
Yeah.
needs like a system like this needs to have a long tail, needs to be something that takes like
This is
months and months and months to
very straightforwardly like a straightforward, easy to understand, visible bad luck protection system.
yeah.
This is something. Well, I mean, that's one of its roles. Like it's that in the sense that if you never get your mythic weapon, now you can turn your heroic weapon into a mythic weapon eventually, and that's
Exactly.
that's what that's what we want. Um,
Oh yeah.
it's also interesting as a like there's been a bunch of systems that they've had in place to be like, well, even if you don't get loot from the boss, you still get something from the boss, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like in Legion and BFA, you got AP. Like it was a pitiful amount of AP, so I don't think it really served that role very well. So like when you're getting less than a world quest amount of AP from killing a raid boss, that doesn't really feel like you're getting something.
No, not at all.
Um, and then of course in Legion, just so much, and to a lesser extent BFA, so much gear dropped that you were pretty likely to get something from every raid, not every raid,
I am.
but every couple raid bosses that you killed. The problem is that most of it was useless, so it didn't really feel like you were getting something. It did make it easier to get things that like the special weapons and trinkets. You might not get
Right. Yeah.
a high eye level one, but you would get one.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So yeah. So it'll be. I'd like to see the system more fleshed out. Like I said, I think this was just been data mined. So all we know are
Yeah,
the items. Right. We don't
yeah,
know any of the implementation, how it's going to drop, how you use it. But yeah, at least speculatively, it seems very interesting. So,
yeah.
So cool. The other thing on 9.2.5 is Blizzard did do a post on renown catch-ups. So basically they upgraded the item, the bind on account item that automatically grants you it. Today it'll grant you 40. In 9.2.5 it'll grant you renown 60, which is basically opening up every soulbind slot across all three soulbinds at 60. The only thing you're missing from there to 80 is the empowered slots. That's nice. They also discussed too that essentially certain activities will now be 100% drop rate of one renowned per upon
Yes.
completion. So this is actually the biggest change, and I'm super excited about this. So like it's in Mythic Plus dungeons, so they're guaranteed. Torghast layers 9 through 16, so all the higher stuff guaranteed. Defeating raid bosses is guaranteed, and then winning a rated battleground is guaranteed. So doing those activities, you now guarantee one renown, which means you can basically time it out. Like
Yeah.
you can spam a bunch of plus twos if you want very quickly, get a bunch of renowned, or just to be fair, play the game
Yeah, I
and
mean,
get renowned.
so the nice thing about it being 60 instead of 40 is now you get your capstone ability without having to do anything really. You pick your covenant, you go and get your BOA item, you go to 60, you go fill out your tree, and that's it. You're done because it's 58, I think, for the maximum, like the third soulbind's final trait,
Yep.
and that means that now you can just go run 15s. Like you don't need the extra 20 renown to go run 15s or whatever. So you can just then start playing the game and accrue the rest of the renown while you're playing it. Um,
Exactly. Yep.
it does also mean so the Covenant campaign gives, I think it's 18 renown total if you do the whole thing. After the like buffs, so every chapter gives like 2 renown now, I think.
Okay.
Um, and that gets you to 78 right there.
Oh, yeah, and then you just need 2
Yeah,
extra things to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you wanted, you could like do the boost, then go do the Covenant campaign, even if you've already done like the Zereth Mortis campaign, which, like I mentioned before, is like insane renown game.
Yeah.
Um, and be up at done with your renown,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
really nice.
Yeah, at least and especially for the final patch, right? Like, being at the final patch, just get everybody everything as quickly as possible, right? I understand
Yeah,
you can't just, like, have an item that says, "Hey, here's 80 renowned." Like, you
I
want
I
people to
mean
play the game a little
I
think
think they could. I think they
they could,
100%
but I
could.
think you got to play I feel like there's still the whole idea of like you got to play the game a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Um,
it unlocks most of the player power from Renown just right up front, which I think is the important bit.
exactly.
There's some mounts and things from the last 20 levels that you would get then from doing more with that covenant, which is
Right.
fine. There's the stamina things that are actually kind of sneaky good that
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The stamina gains, yeah.
that
That's like
you
3% per, right?
7% per.
Oh really? Is it that high? I didn't realize. I thought it
Pretty
was only
sure it's
3.
that high.
Okay.
Uh,
Jesus.
I mean I can pull it up real quick, but I'm pretty sure it's that high.
Fair enough.
It's pretty big. Like I'm taking my paladin up to 78 because the last two renown levels for every covenant are just cosmetic stuff and a title.
Yeah.
Um, but the the other stuff is I think like 7% stamina. Let me find it.
Nice.
Uh, you maybe it's not even listed on here.
I forget what the buff or what the buff is called at that
Yeah, they
point.
may not have listed it on here. Oh, they've got what's deepening bonds?
Yeah.
Doing head searches live on streaming, except I'm not actually streaming it. It is 10%. Oh, okay, sorry. Rank 5 is 10%, so maybe it's 2% per level and it ranks up. Maybe it's not that
Okay.
big.
Gotcha.
Because there's like 5 ranks of the ability, it looks like. Yeah, okay, it's 2% per rank. So the tooltip's actually bad because I was thinking it was like 10% extra
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for getting the last one. But so it's like
Gotcha.
2% per, but 10% total. So you going from 60 to 80 is going to take you uh from basically 6% to 10%. So it's an extra 4%, which is not that bad. Like
Yeah.
you don't need the extra 4% stamina. Like let's be real, you don't need it.
Yeah, yeah, it's not gonna make or break it. So yeah,
And
so
I
that yeah, no.
yeah,
Oh sorry.
it's it's very nice that they're adding this. This is going to
Yeah.
be like you can just swap to a new covenant, plug in the BOA item, and just go raid, go do dungeon,
Ex-
go do PvP, whatever.
yeah, it'll be definitely be fun to catch up on some alts. Actually play some alts maybe in 9.2.5. So um well, cool. Well, and then I guess the only other final thing before we get into the creation catalyst topic is just they did a bunch of hot fixes to the game this week. So I'm gonna rapid fire some of these
Yep.
just in terms of the key ones. So in terms of the raid, um, they did a bunch of fixes into just like things that were broken. So a couple of fixes to like Anduin items not, Anduin pieces not working correctly. They made some updates to the jailer, basically reduced his health by 5% on Mythic, but then also fixed the Mirrors of Torment issue that
Yep.
allowed basically, guilds to stop him from healing at the end of the fight going into phase
Yeah.
4. Um, and so a lot of it, no real numbers other than the 5% on Mythic Jailer, no real other numbers tuning from a boss perspective this week. So a lot of it
Yep.
was just like fixing issues in terms of like how the encounters were working, which is cool. So it seems like we're in a little bit of a lull. And then they did make a couple of changes to some of the classes. So I guess the one, so for us for Windwalker, they basically buffed a lot of Windwalker's single target damage.
Yeah.
So Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, Tiger Palm, and Fist of the White Tiger all received 10% damage increases. Um, which
So
in a single, yeah,
according to Babs, this is about a 4% single target damage increase, which is not sufficient for them to be really competitive in a single target environment.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I mean, it's something. Step one. They need a step two and a step three probably, but it's a step one.
Yeah. Yeah. So some nice, maybe not nice, but buffs to Windwalker. Whether they're great or not, I think is up for maybe not up for debate. But and the other thing too, just so we're all on Druid, Guardian Druid 4-piece watch, they reduced the healing and damage of their 4-piece again this week.
I
Um
feel a little bit
so
bad for them at this point
I
because
do.
like they feel like they died. Their tier set died for Twitch because of Twitch clips, right?
Yeah.
Like it was still good. It died. All right, two things: Twitch clips and holy priests.
Yeah.
Um, like Holy Priest plus in dungeons, letting them use Incarn plus their Venthyr ability way more often.
Oh
But
yeah.
then for like regular people just doing it, like the screenshots and things that you see are from Incarn plus Ravenous Frenzy in a big pull, which are both 3 minute cooldowns that you just stack with each other and you do crazy things. But
Right.
then outside of that 3 minute cooldown, you're not doing a ton. It's like taking a screenshot of a Protection Paladin's damage right as Ashen Hallow ends.
Yeah.
Like, of
Exactly.
course it's going to be insane. It's a 4 minute cooldown. The next 3 minutes, their damage does this.
Yeah, it just drops. Yeah, just dies. Yeah.
It's it's so bad.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, their 4 piece is still good. Like, let's not get it
Yeah.
get it backwards. The 4 piece is still good, but this nerf also, unlike the previous one, this nerf also impacts their single target, and their single target was not stellar. So
Exactly.
now it is less,
Yeah. It's
even, and
even lower.
yeah, and in an environment where now the Blood Decay tier set got bug fixes right as release was happening, and went from being like a 25% gain to literally almost doubling Blood Decay damage.
Oh Jesus, I didn't realize it was that good.
Yeah, there's a um How is playing Frost DK right now. He's the DPS DK main for now.
Uh-huh.
And he got tapped to tank this week and did some sims. And if you turn off his 4 piece but keep all the other gear the same, like he goes from 8 point something K DPS without it on to like 15K DPS with it on. So it's like an 85% DPS
That's
increase
crazy.
on single
That
target.
is crazy.
So uh we'll see if that one sticks around. But we got
For
some other
sure.
changes. Fire Mage got buffs, which is a little bit like in the context of Windwalker getting buffs, so there's not this good. Having
Yeah.
Fire Mage get buffs so that Mage has 3 good specs while Windwalker is still lackluster is kind of tilting.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine, yeah.
Retribution Paladin got some buffs, and they got their Seraphim duration from the 4 piece buffed again because it was still annoying as hell.
Yeah.
It
One
went from
additional
three
second
seconds to
there.
4 seconds. So maybe now you can actually reliably fit a spell into it without like copious weak auras to make sure you can do it.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and then a couple other fixes, including Demonology Warlock nerfs.
Good. Screw those guys. Um, I guess the only final hot fix for this week is Blizzard took a massive swing at two of the Tazavesh dungeons. So second boss, or is it the second boss?
Yeah.
Captain or Time Captain Hooktail,
Yep.
the pirate dragon, received a bunch of nerfs to both the ads, the effect of his double time is now reduced, and then the overall hooked damage when you get damage has been reduced. So that fight nerfed slightly. That's the only annoying fight in that dungeon, and so
It's
it's good.
toxic with like I once, only once, but once ran basically a quintuple melee comp because we had a melee healer and 3 melee DPS and then me of course as a tank. And that fight was awful.
Oh, I can
Just
imagine it's terrible.
absolutely terrible. And this doesn't really fix that at all. What it does do is it makes it a little bit less punishing if you miss some of the Corsairs with the breath.
Yeah.
Um, and it makes it less likely, like it increases the key level you need to reach to one shot people with the tail swipe.
Right, which is super annoying. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. But
See how it goes.
yeah. And then they absolutely trash can Streets of Wonder. The dungeon's actually a joke now. It's one of the easiest, at least on Fortify.
Yeah, they've reduced damage of like I think almost every major trash mob in
Like
there by at least 20%.
I'm gonna rapid fire this. So armored overseer health reduced by 20%. Elementals 25% health reduction. Elementals haste zone now lasts 50% longer. Carrying goods in the market section, you can use abilities now, which basically means that you can actually like you pick it up and then cast sprint instead of having to cast
Exactly.
sprint and then pick it up. Uh, then hyperlight salvo damage reduced by 20%. Reduce the number of bolts per hyperlight salvo. Hyperlight Bolt
Good.
damage reduced by 20%. Quick Blade damage reduced by 40%.
Yeah.
These are pretty significant nerfs.
To the trash everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. Which is
And there's actually,
it's
I think,
awesome.
oh, then of course, total enemy forces required to complete the dungeon has been reduced, which is uh maybe underselling it because they reduced it from 330 enemy forces to 290, which is a bit over 10%.
No, that's not too bad.
And they
I
did
feel
this
like we were.
because they removed some trash,
Oh,
but
that's right. Yeah.
you didn't pull everything anyway. So this just means you have to do slightly less than 90% of the trash that you would have before, which of course makes the key significantly easier to time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. So no, there is lots of nerfs there. So well, cool. Any other the hot? Those are I think the main ones this week in terms of hotfix. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to
I
cover.
think that's pretty much it. Um,
Um.
oh,
All right.
actually, one extremely important one in the raid. They nerfed reflecting shield.
Oh, did they?
They did. It's actually very funny. So they they reduced the damage from it, which basically doesn't matter because the thing that killed people was getting 50 triggers of it at the same time because if they had a blizzard or an eye beam going out, and then they
Right.
made certain spells not trigger it, like Frozen Orb and Blizzard, but they didn't fix eye beam. So if one goes off while a DH is like finishing their eye beam, they just die.
That's awesome. That's still good, man. DHs, they have enough cooldowns, they can live through it. Um,
Uh, yeah. So that was fun. Our mages no longer instantly die whenever reflecting shield goes up, so that's fun.
yeah. Yeah, I remember I've killed myself once or twice with spinning crane kick on those, so that's
Yep.
hopefully
Yep.
they've fixed it for us. Um, well, cool. Well, then I think we're then ready to transition to the main topic, which is Creation Catalyst. Um, so I'll give a little bit of an intro, and then I guess Emallson sort of add anything I missed. But basically, this week coming up on Tuesday, the Creation Catalyst will open up, which essentially allows you to craft tier items um, by eating or deconstructing another item from either the raid this season of Mythic Plus or PvP. And basically, the idea would be is you spend flux to destroy a non-tier piece, and it will create a tier piece in the same slot. Tier piece will transition any tertiaries, any sockets, things like that across. However, the stats will be static to whatever the tier piece is, and so each tier piece has a set of stats. And the fun thing is that there are actually so you think of your 5 tier pieces that trigger your tier bonus. So helm, shoulders, cloak, or sorry, helm, shoulders, chest, gloves, and legs. However, you'll be able to create other tier items that don't contribute to your tier bonus.
Yeah.
So cloaks, bracers, boots, and belts. You can use with the creation catalyst to create a new item. Um,
I think that's
which
mostly for transmog purposes. Like it lets you complete the raid transmog basically
exactly,
with Mythic Plus gear. Because other than that, the only reason you would do it is to change the secondaries on your gear. Which
which
seems
is
like,
good.
I mean, but you get one per week, basically. Which, so let's actually get into that. The way
Yeah.
that this works is there's a charge that accrues globally. So, like for the entire world, every reset, a charge gets added to the creation catalyst for each character. If your character doesn't exist, no problem. You create your character 5 weeks from now. You have 5 charges. So you can immediately go and take some dungeon items and put them in there and have your 4 piece done, which is
Yep.
fantastic. The other cost is cosmic flux. So to actually create a tier item, gloves and shoulders cost 1,200, chests, helm, and legs cost 1,500. Reason for the higher cost is those 3 slots have a higher stat budget.
Yep.
But that's it. That's all you need. And cosmic flux is basically free. If
You
you
get
clear the raid,
1,000.
you're gonna have probably 1,200 or 1,500 from just a single clear of the raid. So what
Right.
this does is basically every single week, if you just, do some dungeons, do the raid, whatever, you're gonna get a tier piece. If you come in on an alt, like my DK has 0 tier pieces, I'm gonna start, just picking up uh, tier items from the creation catalyst, and I'll have 4 piece in on that, in a month. I
Yeah.
have a normal piece on my monk. I think it's normal chest, which is like pretty bad to have as a normal eye level piece because it's very like it's a lot of stats on there to give up
Oh
almost
yeah.
30 eye levels on. So I'm gonna immediately go on Tuesday and turn that into a 278 chest.
Yeah. I get to so I'm really excited about this because on Tuesday I get to do something similar, but it lets me recraft legendaries.
Yes.
So I can move a legendary from my ring to my helm, uh, at a tier chest piece, which is the one piece I'm not wearing of tier, at mythic at 278, and then have use a very good statted ring,
Yeah.
mythic ring. So yeah, I mean, I
That's the
think
other
it
thing that this
opens
does
up.
is very good. Where like you
Yeah,
can take your sorry.
no, I was gonna say like it lets you shift gear around. I was just making a hand motion for
Yeah.
about what we were about to say.
it's just a like we got a bunch of people asking with the raid release, where do I craft my legendary, do I put it like
Yeah,
gloves or do I put it on helm? And it's like neither. You put it on the belt and you move your unity to somewhere else. um
exactly.
and that's not optimal at this point anymore. Once you can fix up your tier pieces with the creation catalyst, probably what you end up doing is you move your Stormsnouts Last Keg for Brewmasters to like Helm, and then put Unity on another slot. Or actually, you might leave it on Belt and then move
Uh-huh.
Unity to another high budget slot, like the chest piece. Um, because basically, you're trying to maximize the number of stats you get and also ideally replace one of the pieces with bad stats
Yeah.
from the tier. Um, but yeah, this is several weeks later than I think it should have come out, but it's a great system.
So, and I would say that it came out at a very good time. So like
Really? Okay.
and yeah, and so here so I think that's going to be the point. I think in general everyone's going to say this is actually a really good system in terms of like catching
Yeah.
up mechanics and things like that. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people like the issue most people are going to have with it is the timing, meaning like this would have been great to have week 2 or week 3 when like I really wanted to finish my tier set and I watched my guild mates or like other people have 4 piece right before me.
Yeah.
Um and I don't think that's what this system was made for. Right? Like I think this system at a very high level is a form of bad luck protection, but I think its actual primary purpose was to allow you to jump in with an alt and immediately feel useful or powerful.
Right.
Right? Because that's going to
I think
be
that's valid,
like
but you have to think about it as well. By the time you can actually jump in and immediately have 4 piece, we're going to be 3 months into the patch because it comes out week 8. Then you need
right.
4 charges, so it's going to take another 4 weeks or 3 weeks. We're going to be on week 11 at the point at which you can actually do that. And I feel like that's a little late. I do think that the bad luck protection thing, like maybe it could have done something as well where like they released it if 11 weeks is what they wanted for the alt thing. They could have
Uh-huh.
released it earlier, on week 6, and then made it so you get 1 charge gap, and then 1 charge every week after that, and like adjusted it slightly so that basically my thing is part of the bad luck protection on this is trying to address the kind of long tail of people that haven't gotten their tier sets yet. Most people completed their tier sets 2 weeks ago in a guild
Mhm.
like ours, and we had under 10% of our raid that didn't have their 4 pieces yet. Well, actually, it was almost exactly 10% of our raid that didn't have their 4 pieces yet. In order to guarantee that with the way the loot rules work and the tokens work, we did splits, and I think that's a problem. That is a issue with the tuning of the tier sets, with the tuning, the timing of Creation Catalyst. Where like, if Creation Catalyst had come out last week, our frustration with it wouldn't have reached the point that we said, okay, fuck it, we're going to do splits. And we didn't do a
Yeah, and
ton. We did one split run effectively, but um, it that it happened at all, I think, is a problem.
yeah, and so I would say that my only counterpoint to that is like you and I are in guilds that want to push mythic, which is like
Right.
not what I think this is for. Right?
It's
So
fair.
the idea is that this is to me for the type of player that either pugs heroic every week, right? Or like the LFR person who's just doing LFR and wants to be able to
I don't.
experience four piece. Cause like from a mythic, like just from a mythic guild, like from a mythic raider perspective, like this isn't what you're going to use to get your four piece because you would have done
Yeah.
something previous to this to make sure you pushed four piece. Like we saved alts on heroic tier bosses so that
Yeah. We
like
did
if we
that
need to
too.
kill a
Yeah.
specific tier boss, we have an alt that's at each one. Right. And
Okay.
so like
Yeah.
if only people need gloves, we will just take the
Go to
glove
live
alt,
them.
yeah, go to
Yeah.
Lihuvim, kill him, and that's it. So like that's not what this is meant for at all. And I think timing wise, what it allows is it allows the system to be used, I think, or maybe, and this is we're sort of speculating, but it allows the system to be used not as a mandatory thing for you and I to have, but as something to help support the larger, I guess, player base. So the player base that
Right.
isn't doing some of this weird
Okay.
stuff in Mythic. Because like
Yeah.
to me, like I don't think this isn't a main thing. And I mentioned the alt thing, but like the idea too is if I ever play an alt and I want to use this, I'm not just gonna wait 4 weeks and then immediately get four piece. I'm gonna probably do LFR, probably do normal, and then
Yeah.
if I get three piece from doing that, great. I automatically have four piece. So if I have bad luck on an alt, it makes missing not feel as bad as missing on my main, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't miss that bad on my main, so I don't have to go through that same sort of like going 3, 4, 5 weeks of
Yeah.
like killing
Not
bosses
getting
trying to finish my
anything.
four pieces. You know what I
I
mean?
I do think so. There's the element of frustration. I think that
Yeah.
this could have helped mitigate that it didn't because of the time.
Yeah.
Because it came out after we did all the stuff that we did in order to get the last two player tier pieces. Um, it missed the opportunity to make tier sets as a system less frustrating for mains as well as alts. Like it could have done both. It didn't. We don't. Mains didn't need to be able to make four pieces, right? Mains needed to be able to make
Mhm.
one piece. So that's the kind of thing where like if it had come out and you could make a singular piece, week 4 or week 6, and then the rest of it kind of unfolds, and later on other people like alts and things can make the rest of their multiple tier pieces that they need. I think
Yeah.
that's fine, but it could have helped mitigate some of the frustrations with tier set acquisition, but because of the timing, it didn't do that. And if they
Y-
don't want it to do that, then I guess that's in line with the design intent. But I would question that design intent when there's this opportunity available for it to accomplish something good, in addition to its
Yeah.
existing role, that then isn't taken advantage of.
Yeah. No, I definitely hear that part of it. It's just to me, like this is the way that it presented itself. It was never a system I'd ever think about using on a main, which is why I think the timing makes sense. Because at this point, if you have rated and killed the tier bosses you could every week, at least at some on some difficulty, right? You will have had your four piece, right? Like I'm assuming like the bell curve here is a very small percentage,
So
right?
so we have 4 people actively rating on the Warcraft logs, like development team. There's
Yeah.
me, Josh, aka Yax, Def, Al, no, it's great name. It's Garrett, and then Pat Scratches in Discord,
Yeah.
and I have 2 4 pieces. Uh, Pat has a 4 piece. Neither Josh nor Garrett have a 4 piece at all, and we've all rated the whole patch.
Yeah.
And like I only got a 4 piece on my paladin this week by pure luck because I was doing a normal run. Like I've run normal on my paladin every week,
Yeah.
and I've gotten 2 mythic pieces from the vault, and then had another piece traded to me from a main that came to our alt run this week to try
Yeah.
and fish for a better tier set setup. So it's like I kind of like I actually feel like this is timed to where people that haven't rated as much, like this is going to be used for mains. There
Yeah.
are mains that don't have 4 piece from guilds that aren't as serious about acquiring 4 pieces for
Mhm.
everyone. And it's also like heroic guilds and things like that that weren't clearing heroic or maybe even all of normal right
That's true.
away are going to be finishing up their 4 pieces with this, 2 months into the patch. The
Yeah.
second thing that I think this kind of missed on, and this is actually, in my opinion, more related to the thing of 4 pieces being too high.
Okay.
25-35% increases to your power are just too high.
Right.
I think. Um, if you go and you look at the LFG tool, you look at 15 keys, and you'll see people, asking for people that have 4 piece.
Yeah.
You don't need 4 piece to complete a 15. You know, I just did a 19 on my DK that's I level 255 and 0 piece. You know,
Yeah.
it's entirely possible to do these keys without that. But because of the pug environment and how punishing it is to like miss timer with people just like leaving if there's even a medium chance of you missing the timer, people are
Yeah.
like, okay, we're going to guarantee we at least complete this key by requiring everybody have 4 piece, which then has the effect that now it's much harder for you to get your keys in if you're not in a guild that will run keys with you if you don't have 4 piece, because it's going to be harder to get invites. um
Right.
and so I think there's like several different pieces, and like I think it does ultimately boil down to the power. Like if the power level were 10% instead of 25, or in the case of blood decay is 85%,
Yeah.
then I don't think it would be as frustrating to not have your 4 piece. The lower delta, we would never sit somebody for not having their 4 piece in that environment.
Right.
People might still ask for it in LFG, but it would be much less frequent, much less like worry. Um,
Yeah.
but then since they did tune it like that, I feel like in order to mitigate the frustrations from not having it, it should have the creation catalyst should have been available slightly sooner. I don't think it should have been available, week 2 of the patch or whatever. That's just like
Yeah.
there's other acquisition systems that are actually from, doing the content and progressing through getting your 4 piece. You're not supposed to jump straight to having your 4 piece kind of. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. You gotta put in the time. You gotta work for it, right before they just
right.
give it to you. Yeah. And I mean I get that. I just from a timing perspective, I don't know. We're not that far into this
We're two
season, right?
months into the patch.
Yeah, but this is on a so we're on a essentially what it looks to be a 6 month cycle, right? So like 6 to 9 month cycle. So
I don't think the length of the patch itself is super relevant, given that actually a lot of people aren't going to play the whole thing. Like
well now they are because they want to get their 4 piece, right?
I don't think they are. Like the people, I think it is more likely that people have already quit because they couldn't get their 4 piece and they couldn't get into keys because they didn't have their 4 piece, than for them to stick around because creation catalyst means that they could complete it the next week.
Yeah, yeah. I mean I don't. I guess yeah. There's fundamentally
But
like two different points of view on it because like I
that's an
don't.
opinion and speculation thing, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I have
yeah.
no data to back that up. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, because like to me, uh, I guess just in the grand scheme of things, like the like in terms of where you'd place this, then though, like if so, we're at what week 11, right? This is what this is coming out. So we've
No.
had
Yes, maybe. I don't even know anymore. The
because the
patch came
patch came
out
out
the first week
February,
of March, right? Or the last week of February.
the 22nd of February. So it's like
Okay.
one, one, two, three, four, five, six. So there's been 7 full weeks of the patch. Basically, this is the start of week 8.
So it'll be week 8 that it comes out, right? Got it.
Yeah, so like 2 months in, basically. So I
Yeah.
was overestimated. I thought it was so. To me, like if you move this anywhere, right? Like you'd want to. Because here's, I guess, yeah. Because like moving it any sooner to me just feels like you. At least personally, like there's the idea of like, well, I don't like I can just farm up 3 piece from the first 3 bosses and then make my third one. Because if this is like in
I
week
don't think that's a
4,
problem. Well, yeah,
I,
okay.
like if it like depend like because you move this to week 4, that's 1 week of heroic, like really only 2 weeks of having every tier
Yeah.
piece available,
And
right?
I don't think that that's so actually. I think having the last 2 tier pieces only available from week 2 onwards was also part of the problem here, because it meant
Oh yeah,
you So there's a combinatorics problem. It's not like an acquisition rate problem in theory, but because of the combinatorics of like which pieces you get lucky on, which pieces you don't, it basically added a bunch of extra time to average acquisition that
Yeah.
wouldn't have been added if you could get all four pieces the first week, because that first week maybe you don't get, you know as it is now, you can't get helm or chest on that first week.
Right.
But that also means that you can't, like, you only have three shots at that tier piece. You could get gloves and legs, but then the next week the you have chances at those again, but not the other two. Like, so it's
Yeah.
harder to finish your four piece because you have to effectively have one of those two pieces that you didn't have a chance for the first week. And actually, due to tuning, you might not have had a chance at it the second week either.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think, I mean, I'm on board that missing on loot sucks, but I think the only thing I'm not on board with is that, like, you get so many chances, like you have so many chances at getting your tier piece just in general, that like making your four piece, if you are the type of player that really gets frustrated when you don't have it, there's enough ways to finish your four piece in the game that the creation catalyst should be should be the last resort in
I
terms of
mean,
like, boom, I can guarantee, because like, to be fair, creation catalyst is a guaranteed for, like, it's a
yeah,
guaranteed piece. Like
I, I
there's
think
no
they
hoops you need to
needed.
jump through.
I think they needed a guaranteed piece sooner in the tier, because
Yeah.
we had people that were very serious about acquiring their four pieces. People turning down best in slot Mythic Plus items in their vault in order to take a tier piece that then still had to have us basically do splits for them in order to finish their four pieces. Um, and that, you know, it's
I get that.
like
I guess, yeah.
the guaranteed way to get it was to run splits. You could guarantee it from week two if you ran, or basically from week two if you
Yeah.
ran splits. If you ran splits, you could do it, but nobody outside the top guilds realistically is running splits. Even when I say we ran splits, we ran heroic and saved a bunch of people to the, or ran normal, saved a bunch of people to the bosses, so we actually had a
Yeah.
comp that could kill them, and then brought in 10 people that could trade normal mystic helm and chest,
Yeah.
and that way we could guarantee, or it was 8 people plus the two slots, so that we
Right.
could guarantee that we could finish those off. And so it was one extra run of those two bosses for us. But that's like exploiting personal loot effectively.
Right.
Like, that shouldn't be the way that you do it. Like,
Yeah,
if
but
personal loot,
I
if,
guess
if
I
uh,
so my I guess my only point there, and this is more not the game's fault, but it's the not, and it's not that's not fault's the wrong word, but it's not the game that does this. It's us as players wanting to ensure that as a guild, all of our guild members are on equal ground. Right. So
yeah,
like, in the grand scheme of things, you ran splits because, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, so you can tell me to shut up. Like, and you don't agree, but like, the idea is you ran it for these two particular individuals because you knew if push came to shove, you're going to sit them on bosses because you want people with four
we
piece
had
because of
already
the
sat
power.
them on bosses because they
Yeah, so
didn't
you've
have
already
tier
done that.
pieces.
Yeah. So, and that's why you went and did this. Where, like, to me, the creation catalyst doesn't, like, it's the same issue like, this is again like a top guild thing. Like, it's the same issue as splits in general aren't a thing the general population do because we don't care, like, we don't need to
Yeah,
have everything funneled within 2 weeks, right?
yeah.
So the creation catalyst, to me, again, I think it's just from a system perspective. Like, it's one of those things where, like, people take the idea of like, oh, you need four piece to me, it's like, it's the
So
same idea of like,
I
you need
think
four piece to do a 15
there's some.
versus.
I do think that there's, like, if you look at 15s as the example
Yeah.
I used earlier, that's purely a community problem. You don't need four pieces to do 15s. I was doing 15s
Yeah.
week one with zero piece and like sanctum gear and stuff like that. Like, you don't need
Yeah.
it. Um, but the way they tune bosses in Mythic, like, doing it without four pieces, like, why? Why would you even waste your time? Why would you
If
bring
you
in
have the
someone?
ability to change, if you have the ability to add a person, basically swap a person with four piece than a person without it. Yeah, I agree. But like,
Which is what happened with us. We had three people.
yeah.
We had three people that didn't have four piece. One was me, so we couldn't bench me because I'm the fucking tank. Uh,
Yeah.
and we then had a hunter and a boomkin, actually two boomkins, but one of them was out of town when we were doing this, and then
Yeah.
lucked into a 4-piece from their vault. So good on them. But then we had benched the hunter, benched the boomkin because they didn't have 4-piece for Zymox, and it was like, well, we want to have the people with for hunter in particular, the role they play on that fight to go over to the 4 platforms and kill the ads. In order to do
Yeah.
that really effectively, they need 4-piece. And if they don't have it, then we basically sat one of our best players to bring in somebody else, also a hunter, that had 4-piece so they could kill it. And that's not a knock on the person that had 4-piece, but ideally we would have run all 3 of our hunters and just had them go and like trivialize that mechanic. Um,
Yeah.
but we couldn't.
So I guess then timing wise, so if we say week 8, it's unlocking now, which you're saying is too late. Like, how early would you have unlocked this then?
I would have gone week 6,
So
which would have
2 weeks
been,
ago.
yeah, 2 weeks ago. I would have gone week 6. That would have so we still have we have a resto shaman that we didn't run splits for because they technically have 4-piece and they're like, I can use it differently. But to run their really
Yeah.
actually best legendary, they have to get 5-piece because the
Yeah.
4-pieces they got, their best legendaries in 2-tier slots, which is like an interaction with the legendary system would hopefully won't be a problem next expansion.
Yeah. Shadow Priest, I think, have the same issue.
Yeah.
Right. Or
Um
Priest, yeah.
but that would have eliminated the we would have had all of our 4-pieces that week, but it wouldn't most of our raid wouldn't have needed it. 85% of our raid 2 weeks ago had 4-piece. The last
Yeah.
15% was missing one single piece. And we did raid that week. We didn't we were like, we'll get it, it'll be fine, we don't have to worry about it. And
Yeah.
then we didn't get it. We went from
Mhm.
85% complete to 90% complete
Right.
because
You
the
missed something.
tokens
Yeah.
just dropped or actually literally like all of our dreadful tokens on the boss were done. We got 2 dreadful tokens from that boss that week. And he was
Yeah.
like, well, are we going to bench all of our warlocks and DKs and whatever else is on that token? I think it's like demon hunters or something. um
Yeah.
and just like bench all of them so that we can guarantee tier pieces. Was that it was correct, but that's a kind of shitty thing to do.
No.
um
Yeah.
and so that's the point where it's we ran into this brick wall with the trading rules where the combination of tokens, the combination of not being able to trade tier pieces you don't need but don't have yet, we kind of ran into that brick wall where we were getting a bunch of pieces that went to waste.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
that motivated us to come back to next week and just do splits because we were like, well, we obviously can't bet on the tier
Yeah.
pieces
Yeah.
dropping for the tokens that can actually trade them. We have to take matters into our own hands and do this. And the creation catalyst, if it had been out that week, would have just said yeah, you don't have to worry about doing splits or anything like that. You can just run heroic again, and then everybody that's still missing it can go creation catalyst, and it'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Go create them. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's fair. I mean, I'd say to me, the difference between week 6 and week 8 over the long term isn't a huge issue because
Yeah,
the other thing too is you're, as a raider on your main, you're going to interact with this system generally maybe once, right? So the
yeah.
fact that you need it once over the course of that's the other, I guess, aspect from my point of view is that this isn't something that you will come back to multiple times. You're
Yeah.
not going to every 2 weeks, great, we have a charge for the creation catalyst and I'm going to use it on a piece of gear, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Maybe
I'm
your
gonna use
vault, you'll
it
do
to fix up my tier piece, right? Or fix up
well,
my tier
exactly.
set so
Well,
I can recraft,
but
which is
that's going
one
to be
interaction with it, right? Like you said,
yeah,
one interaction.
and that's sort of a in the future thing. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
definitely use my first charge because I can swap things around. Change where my legendary is crafted on all that fun stuff. But
yeah.
after that on my monk, the only other time I'm gonna interact with it is if I get a mythic piece from my vault that I then want to change into a mythic tier piece.
Which actually,
And
I've got 3 of those right now that I
I
can
I
turn.
I
I can
think
turn normal
I have
items into mythic ones.
yeah, I think I have legs and a chest, so I have 2. So the chest will be
Yeah,
what I do first, and then potentially legs a little bit later. But I mean, that's cool, but also I don't need that to finish. And
yeah,
that's my
yeah.
thing
I
is
think
I
the big thing for me is just cutting off that last 10-15% of people that didn't get 4
yeah
piece. And obviously that we had 15% left of the raid that needed it going into the raid. only
Yeah.
5% of it came out actually completing it. And then we got another, little. Actually, no, we didn't. We didn't get like anything that week. It was
Yeah.
awful. Just a like absolute shit fiesta of bad RNG. Um, and that's the kind of thing that I think having a deterministic system like the creation catalyst available at that point in time helps resolve.
Yeah, and I agree that that is one thing it does. I think the only thing I disagree with is like I think we have enough systems in the game that give out enough loot that this is just one thing I don't think we needed earlier. I think it's nice where it's coming in. I can't, yeah.
I mean,
Which
so thinking back to corruption, like we got the corruption vendor like 6 months into the patch. It was awful, right?
yeah,
It was
I agree.
obviously way too late, way too late. But the level of power gain we're dealing with now is like early tier corruption, and it would have been incredible to be able to take some of the variance out of that system and say, I'm going to deterministically go and pick, a Twilight Death piece from
Ye-
the corruption catalyst or whatever.
I think the only difference I have there is that like the difference between corruption and tier pieces is corruption you needed two sets of RNG. You needed it on a piece you actually
Yeah,
cared
you
about
had to get
equipping,
the tier.
and you needed the right corruption to proc,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's
So
true.
like, and in certain cases like Twilight Dev, like I think you'd wear cloth bracers with Twilight Dev as a tank
I
because it was
basically
just
did that. Yeah,
ridiculous, right? Like it was ridiculous. But so power levels on like discounting those, the idea
I
with the
mean,
vendor for
we have
corruption
people that
perspective,
we still have people wearing LFR pieces, LFR tier pieces because
right?
and
But
like
you weren't.
they would wear LFR cloth pieces if they had the ability to wear LFR tier cloth pieces and
Yeah,
have it
but
complete their tier set.
like in that regard they weren't like you weren't having to kill a specific boss and then hit two pieces of RNG to nail, because corruption was
Yeah,
that sort of second piece of RNG. It was like
yeah,
you needed an item and you needed to proc exactly what you wanted. The vendor made sense there because it eliminated the idea of like, oh, I got this corruption piece but it's like the haste, it's more haste, it sucks,
yeah,
like I don't care about this, like I want
yeah.
this good one. And like to me like
I mean, it's
that
really for
vendor was
me.
needed to limit like the like the fact that RNG was all over the place with in terms of gear drops with corruption. But like in the case of tier, essentially to me it's like very much a an easy button in terms of like I haven't hit in 8 weeks, right, on what I needed. So or I've hit I've hit 75% of the time on what I needed in 8 weeks. So here's my easy button of saying, cool, I win now. Right.
I
And that's
am I am generally of the opinion that the variance in loot is not like, I'm going to say too high. It's too high, but it's too high not because of the average case. The average case I think is fine. The average case for
yeah.
us was completing your tier piece around week 5. That's doing nothing special, no splits, no benching people, nothing. Like the only thing we
Yeah.
did is we said you have to get 2 items in your vault that aren't from raid, and if you get a tier piece in your vault, you have to take it. That was
Yeah.
all we did. Um, and the average case was fine. My issue is, and this applies also to stuff like the special weapons and trinkets we've talked about
Yeah.
before, is the gap between the average case and the 99th percent of bad luck. You know,
Yeah.
of being the last person in your raid. It's now week 8. You haven't gotten 4 piece yet, but you're looking at people that have had 4 piece since week 3. And
Yeah.
that's the point where it's the variance is just too big, in my opinion. And this also applies to things like, the weapons from last year, where we had people running
Yeah.
around with, normal Sylvanas daggers for most of the tier and things like that. Um, that having a deterministic system in place helps mitigate the variance. And
Yeah.
that is really, like, the creation catalyst is going to do that for a lot of guilds, not ours because we finished ours, but for a lot of
Yeah.
guilds it's going to be that piece that helps fix that variance. But it doesn't go far enough and this is purely opinion. Like me and you are
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
just going to disagree on this
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah, no,
purely opinion
yeah,
on what it is. But it is just not going quite far enough to limit the variance. In my opinion, it needs to go. It needs to come out a little bit sooner. You need to cut the variance off a little bit earlier, and that would have been just just strictly better in my opinion. Like there wouldn't really
yeah,
have been a downside to it. Most of our people wouldn't have needed it in order to finish their tier piece. Again, not doing anything special, just doing normal and heroic clears, just doing, taking tier pieces from the vault. There's really nothing special there. Um, and it would have meant that, we never entered a situation where we benched somebody on Mythic Prog because they didn't have a 4 piece.
yeah.
The other way they could have gone is they could have just had 4 pieces not be 25% damage gains.
Yeah,
If
but
the
I
four
think you
pieces weren't
still,
so insane, then it wouldn't have mattered. We would have because we would have still brought those people in spite of them not having a 4 piece because they're just good. They're
yeah,
good at the game. So that's the other thing is like it's a combination. It's a variance not purely in acquisition. It's a variance in power level, right?
yeah.
Between not having it and having it. And that I think it needs a little
It
more
added to it.
fine
Yeah,
tuning. And so if it were like, week 8 would have been fine if it were 10% instead of 25%. But because it's 25%, I feel like the creation catalyst needed to be sooner. But then, if they bring it sooner and it's 10%, that's not necessary. So
yeah.
there's different ways they could resolve this. And the one that keeps the current tuning of tier sets would have been to have the creation catalyst sooner, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, and I guess it's just like the acquisition to me. Like this feels, it feels to me, like I think sort of balancing all of it too. If you think about it, like to me, it feels good where it is, just timing wise, because like this is where you're gonna hit wall. Like the first couple weeks, you're like to me, like the creation catalyst helps you fill those gaps from a gear perspective. And at this point, you've probably hit some level of a wall, or will hit some level of a wall where having more optimal gear will be helpful. And like adding it any sooner to me, just and maybe my point is the opposite, where like it's actually very cheap to do this. So like if they wanted it earlier, make the actual requirements to use it higher. Meaning
Okay,
like
yeah.
not only it didn't take a laughable amount of cosmic flux just to transmute an item. Like maybe it took like 2 items of that slot, and you needed both of their power plus flux to make, the tier set, right? Because that's the other side of it too. Is like I just can't go over the fact that this is literally a like I win button, and like there's no like you are going to like if you did everything you could to get your tier sets, you're going to have copious amounts of extra gear to transmute into whatever tier set you want, right? So like the idea is like to me, it's if it was sooner, it just cheapened the work you would put in to get to your tier set if it was
Yeah.
just this easy. And
So
that's the like that's the whole balance thing too of it, right?
yeah.
Which I don't
I,
think we have to get into it because
yeah.
I think personally like you and I just we just
Yeah.
don't
I
agree,
mean,
which is fine.
I,
But
I think that it should have basically my litmus test is did this come out soon enough that we as a relatively normal mythic guild felt it was unnecessary to do anything special about loot? If the
yeah.
answer is no, like it was this year, it came out too late. The answer is yes, that it came out on time or too early. Like and that's where like I think week 6 would have moved it to being on time by that litmus test. Because it didn't come out week 6, then week 7 we turned around and we did like splits.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I mean that's fair. I like I get it. I think yeah, for us that's the other thing too, like from a personal just experience perspective, like we never needed to it. Like we got our last Shadow Priest gloves like last week without doing splits, like doing our I think our
Yeah.
normal or our heroic run that we did. So like for us it was we didn't have a raider that had to interact with it. And like to me, just thinking about this, like it just seems like to me, I just don't think the system was meant to be. Yeah, I just it's just too easy. Like I can't get over the fact that it's too easy to use. Like too easy, not to use. I'm sorry, but too easy from a requirements perspective to get tier. That it being any earlier, just I don't know. It just seems like it
And
the I just have an issue with the like I have an issue with the cost it was earlier. I think it's my problem. Is that
Okay,
like you would have to put
I
more
don't.
work in.
Yeah. I mean, it's still like you're not going to get a mythic eye level tier piece from a an LFR piece plus some cosmic flux, right? You have to actually get the mythic eye level piece, which is time gated either by getting into the Great Vault or by actually getting it from a mythic raid boss, right? Like
Right.
to get a good eye level one, you still need to get a good eye level piece in the first place. It's just like I, the other thing maybe is like I see four pieces a feature of the patch is like the
Yeah,
chase,
yeah, yeah.
like there's some fun in the chase for four piece and like the excitement that comes from getting a piece that drops. It's like, ah, yes, I got the piece, it turned on my four piece. um but like there's a point where the excitement turns to frustration where you don't get it.
Yeah,
And
and I
yeah,
yeah, I have like, and that's probably just a fundamental difference. I know we're well over time now, because we're probably gonna
yeah,
end it here. But like, I don't get frustrated over not getting like, I don't. Yeah, I guess the frustration of not getting something is just because I've played this game for so long. Is just
yeah,
it's just a part of the game
yeah.
to me. Like, if you don't get frustrated by not getting loot drops, you haven't played World of Warcraft enough.
I
And
don't like it's
and
not
that's
the
just personally me.
frustration. I don't think it's frustration over not getting loot jobs per se, because like there's not a single piece of gear that we would have benched somebody over not getting
Yeah.
prior to this. But because it basically turns on, a feature of the patch, you know, you now are in a situation where, oh, these three people don't have the feature of the patch turned on. Um, you know, they can't do this mythic boss, or
Yeah.
we're effectively going to carry
Yeah.
them through the mythic boss because they're just going to do 25% less than the next person.
Yeah, and I get that part of it, but that's there has always been like, tier pieces are the feature of the patch, but there has always been items like that. Well, maybe it's not
No,
25% of your
no, there
damage.
hasn't been. Their category has not always been pieces like that. The last case that would have been similar would have been legendaries and Nighthold. Um, because there was tier sets in Nighthold, but they were in that like 5 to 10% gain at like tier, not the 25% gain. The real issue
But
would
no,
have
no,
been not
sorry.
getting your key legendary.
Well, so like, yeah, but what I meant is like, there's always going to be a item like, and yeah, I mean, you're bringing in the power aspect of it. Like, my point is more the acquisition side of it, right? Because like, I think they're I don't know. I just the
Yeah, I
power
mean,
aspect of it was never like a thing with me. It's always like you eventually have to put it like, there's an eventual point where you will get what you need, and there are just certain items you may not get, even though they're very good for you.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I get your point of view that like, tier sets being a feature, tier sets being so powerful, like it like
yeah.
jam
I
like
mean,
this
there's like,
shards with the other side of that, right?
yeah,
That suck. But I guess I mean I sorry, I know we're well
yeah,
over
we're over
time.
time
I know
now.
we're
We
probably
should
just
probably
going in
wrap it
circles
up.
at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah. It's ultimately, I think, just a disagreement between us, between like
Yeah.
what the goals are and what the like problems are on a fundamental level. But yeah, it's
Yeah, because I think
it's
it's literally like, I think it's as simple as saying like, I don't see the fact that people I don't see the fact that people not getting their tier yet. Like, sorry, I don't see the creation catalyst as a system to support your main in terms of finishing your tier sets.
yeah,
Like, to me, like, that's not what the creation catalyst was about for me. It was the ability to maybe adjust existing gear to support like this, or for alts to not have to put
yeah,
as much work in and feel as frustrated. Where I think you're more of the point of saying like, there are still going to be edge cases that the creation of Catalyst could have smoothed and made it an easier experience for someone's first time through trying to
yeah.
acquire
I
their
mean,
four piece and things like that.
if we had not run splits last week, we would be using Creation Catalyst to finish one or two people's your sets off this week or this coming week.
Right. Yeah.
That's just how it would have worked.
Right. Which is, and to your point, that's why you wanted it sooner, right? Because
Yeah,
you feel like as your guild, doing splits should not be something you do, and also the creation catalyst, there should be a system from a Blizzard perspective that helps like
yeah. That's not just
eliminate those
abusing
edge case
personally.
frustration points.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which actually,
Yeah.
what would have addressed the issue that we ran into where we had a bunch of like useless token drops. Master Loot.
Well, maybe.
It would have it
because
would have like the we ran, Lihuvim, and we got a couple of Zenith gloves, which I needed to finish my 4 piece. And they were on people that didn't have gloves yet, but they had their 4 piece, and they're like, I'm not using this. But I can't trade
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Master Loot
No, I
fixes that.
no it. But then yeah, I mean, I
There's
think that's a
that's
whole
all
different
other can of worms.
conversation.
We are
Yeah,
already over time. We're not getting into it.
yeah,
There's issues with Master Loot. It doesn't solve every
yeah.
problem. We've
It's true.
spent time on it in previous podcasts. If you want to hear more about that, you can go listen to our previous podcast because it's come up a couple times recently. So you can go back through like episodes like 100 through 105 and get plenty of talk about Master Loot. All right,
Yeah.
one final thing before we wrap up. I wanna ask you. Okay, so what are you recrafting to improve your tier setup with the creation
So
catalyst?
yeah, so basically what I'm gonna end up doing is I have a mythic chest, a 278 chest that I'm gonna craft into a tier piece. And that's gonna allow me to change my normal helm to Unity essentially. So I'll recraft
Okay,
Unity from ring to helm, and then basically be I have a crit haste ring that I'll be to equip where Unity is now.
so
So
is
that
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 like
it'll
a theoretically BIS Mistweaver setup, or is it like a gear in my bags? This is the best setup.
No, theoretically BIS. So at the end of the day, as a
Okay,
Mistweaver, you want to craft Unity on Helm, and you want to craft your other ancient teachings on Wrist. So like it helps
yeah,
me support that setup. Yeah,
gotcha.
for sure. Yeah. So yeah, so that's and that yeah. Again, at the start, it's always like we were able to you put it on Ring, you put Unity on Ring for us from Mistweaver perspective because it dodges tier. So get your
Yeah,
4 piece however you can, and
yeah.
then at a later time make the swap, and they'll be able
I've
to
got
make the
Unity
swap.
on Ring right now because when I went to craft Unity, the base legendary items were like 3 bajillion gold, uh, and rings happened to be cheapest, so I just went with Ring,
Yeah,
which also worked out because I ended up not getting good rings anyway, so it was fine. Which means I may not even recraft Unity next week. Like I'm gonna upgrade
yeah.
a tier item, but I may not even bother recrafting Unity because I still don't have a second good high level ring to put on.
Yeah,
Um,
I got lucky. I think the ring was from Mythic Plus somewhere. I forget what
yeah,
dungeon. But yeah, I mean I got lucky on pulling the Mythic ring. But yeah, it just sort of lets me swap. Get rid of a normal piece. It'll be a massive eye level upgrade and then still
yeah,
keep 4 piece, which will be good. So
yeah. Awesome, awesome. I don't
yeah.
know what the theoretical best for Brewmaster is anymore. So
It's too
don't
I mean,
ask.
I it's too variable. Like that's the other thing is
Yeah,
like this lists are so stupid nowadays because
yeah.
like
The I actually really hope. I don't know what raid bots is gonna have for creation catalyst. Maybe that's something we talk about next week. Is like,
yeah.
here's how you in raid bots figure out what's your best way to use creation catalyst. That might have been a thing for today, but it doesn't have, like, you can use gear compare right now. You can go
Yeah.
in gear compare, you can type in the name of the tier piece, you can put the eye level in, and you can do a big sim and figure it out, which is actually probably what I'll do. But you there's not like an easy way to be like, click this button, put all the different creation catalyst options I have in here, and optimize. Hey, what do I spend my charge on this week?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or is it
It'll
even
be
worth
interesting.
spending my charge, or should I just sit on it?
Yeah, just yeah, bank them for now. So yeah.
Yep. But we are now 10 minutes past when we're supposed to end. Uh,
Longest podcast in a
so
while.
yeah, yeah. But that is going to be it for the show today. Thank you all for watching and or listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and you enjoy me and Anomoly arguing ad infinitum about things that really don't matter all that much, you can support it by going over to our Patreon over at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. And that, of course, also supports all the work that we do over on the site with guides. There's a couple of recent posts on there for brewmasters on, like, hey, what should I take from my vault? And I'll
Yep.
probably put something up about using Creation Catalyst as well. And then there's one I'm working on for what tier set actually does.
Nice, nice.
Um, and of course, we'd encourage you to come and join our Discord. The Peak of Serenity Discord is, for everybody. Come and hang out in the lounge, ask questions, answer questions, get people to look at your logs. Lots of good people doing good things in Discord. So, but that is going to be it for the show today. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.